Story 1. I'm a huge cinephile. For those of you who don't know what that means, I'm basically obsessed with movies. I'm not the happiest with my life, so I immerse myself in the world of cinema and let my problems fall by the wayside. I usually don't go to the overpriced AMC near my house. Instead, I bring my business to a locally owned movie theater. Yes, it's a very dingy theater. Yes, the screening rooms smell moldy. Yes, it's usually empty. But I don't care. A movie's a movie, and if the price is right, I'm there. None of my friends like horror movies, so once in a while I go alone to the theater to see the newest releases. This all started when a new guy started working at the theater. His name was Ron. Ron was the prototypical nerd. He wore thick-rimmed glasses with tape in the middle. He had large braces, and he was extremely shy. Ron was also very weird. He would always talk to me about serial killers, and how they fascinate him so much. I mean, I like horror movies, so it didn't creep me out too much, but it got to be very strange when he said that he collected weapons. The first few times I went to the theater with Ron, he would always come into the theater and sit near me, like right behind me. I mean, it would be just us in the theater, and this guy would be breathing down my neck. This happened a few times. Just as I was about to cut ties with the theater and head to the AMC, Ron stopped working there. He was replaced by another high school-aged kid. The scariest night of my life happened when the new Halloween movie came out. I showed the new employee my ID, and he let me into the theater. After the first few minutes of the film, the screen turned off. This occasionally happened at this theater due to faulty wiring. After around 5 minutes of waiting in complete darkness, I heard a noise. Then a whisper coming from directly behind me. "You thought you'd never see me again?" I took out my cell phone flashlight and shined it towards the back of the theater. There was a man sitting directly behind me. He was wearing a Michael Myers mask. He stood up and slowly started approaching me. He revealed an oddly long machete. I quickly ran to the side door, but it was locked. The man continued walking towards me, in the slow, deliberate walk all horror fans know too well. I sprinted towards the main exit, which led into the lobby. That too was locked. I banged as hard as I could on the glass door, but nobody answered my screams. The man continued to slowly approach me. Step by step, he got closer and closer. He suddenly sprinted the last few steps towards me. He lifted up the machete and stabbed me in the stomach. The machete bent. It wasn't a real machete. It was rubber. The man took off the mask. It was Ron, and he was laughing. "Sorry, man. It was just a joke. I love this movie." Needless to say, I told Ron a few choice words, and he unlocked the doors. I never went back to that theater again. Horror movies are fun to watch, but I never want to reenact one, ever again. Story 2. Like many kids in my area, my first job was at the local movie theater. Now our local theater isn't an AMC or Regal. We didn't have nice recliner seats or hot meals for our customers. My local theater was a dingy and decrepit old movie theater. It was a Tuesday night. We were running the $5 late night special. After 9 p.m., a ticket and popcorn was only $5. It was pretty empty that night. It was so empty that my car was the only one in the parking lot. There were no big new releases that week, and it was snowing pretty hard. Just as I was about to call my boss to ask if we can close up early, an old man came into the lobby. He looked very disheveled. His clothes were ripped, and it looked like he hadn't showered or shaved in weeks. "Hi, sir. How can I help you?" "One $5 special, son, to see A Nightmare on Elm Street. Make that popcorn with extra butter." As I was getting his popcorn, the man's stench overtook the entire lobby. I never smelled a dead body before, but I could imagine that his stench wasn't far off. After I gave him his popcorn, he smiled at me, exposing dark yellow, partially rotting teeth. He then headed into his theater. I don't usually get creeped out easily, but this guy was hiding something. I don't know what it was, but I did not feel safe with him alone. The next few hours proceeded as normal. I put away all the food and started cashing out the register. Everything started to get strange after the movie ended. I got the notification on my phone that the showing was over and waited for our sole patron to exit the theater. He never came out of the showing room. I was a little nervous to look for him, so I grabbed my pepper spray and put on all of the lights. I slowly entered the showing room. It was completely deserted. I walked up and down every aisle. I even checked below the seats. Nothing, not even his popcorn container. I proceeded to check the bathroom and the other showing rooms. He was nowhere to be found. It was getting late, and I needed to get home, so I just assumed he got bored, or maybe too scared from the movie and exited out the side door. You aren't supposed to leave through the side doors, but people do it all the time. I locked up the theater and went to my car. I placed my phone on the empty front seat beside me and pulled out of the parking spot. I proceeded to drive the few miles towards my house. I slowed down at a red light in front of a local pub. As I sat there waiting for the light to turn green, I heard a shuffling in the back seat. I quickly turned around. It was the man from the theater. He was sitting in my back seat and had a large butcher's knife. He started reaching towards me. I unbuckled my seatbelt and sprinted out of my car. I ran inside the pub and told the bartender and customers what had happened. They went outside and found my car completely empty. I reported the incident to the police, but the man was never caught. I quit my job at the movie theater soon after that. Be careful at movie theaters. They are a place for the community to come together. However, they are also a feeding ground for society's worst. Story 3. It was a cold January night. My friend Dan and I went to see the new Star Wars movie. We were seeing the movie pretty late at night, so it wasn't too packed. I would say the theater was around half full. It all started off like a fun night. We got seats towards the front of the theater. People were dressed up like their favorite Star Wars characters. There were Chewbacca's, Yoda's, and Darth Vader's scattered everywhere. A few minutes after the movie started, a large man dressed as a stormtrooper sat in the front right seat of the theater. I thought nothing of it and continued watching the movie. A few minutes later, another man dressed as a stormtrooper sat in the front left seat of the theater. Once again, this didn't faze me, as I was immersed in the movie. After yet another few minutes, two men dressed in stormtrooper costumes sat in the two back corners of the theater. Now I was getting weirded out. Why were all these men dressed the same way, placing themselves at each corner of the theater? Just as I was about to ask Dan what was going on, all of the stormtroopers stood up. "This is a robbery. Pass all your wallets and jewelry to one of us, and nobody gets hurt," one of the stormtroopers yelled. We were all completely silent. Was this really happening? Suddenly, Dan stood up. "No way! Get out of here!" Dan yelled as he stared at the stormtroopers. As if on cue, one of the stormtroopers revealed a gun and fired it into the ceiling. Dan quickly complied, and we all passed our wallets to the stormtroopers closest to us. "Now everyone, get under your seat and count to 1,000, and I mean it, or else," another stormtrooper shouted. We all slowly crawled under our seats and began counting in unison. The side entrance opened, and each stormtrooper exited with large bags filled with our belongings. A car sped off from the parking lot. Dan sprinted into the lobby and directed a theater employee to call the police. The police never found the four stormtroopers. The costumes made them completely unidentifiable. Never let your guard down while at the movies. That guy dressed as a stormtrooper next to you can very well be more dangerous than the ones on the screen.